So welcome back. Just wanted to ask you, how was the networking? I think that's really important in today's time. So we're excited to hear back how that went. So any comments, please leave them in the chat box because we want to hear about that. So as you know, being live and being in our virtual world with all the technologies, we've made a couple of changes in our schedule, but we're going to give an introduction here with Vanessa Ogle. And so I'm really excited to introduce her. She's really our first session speaker that's going to be talking. So I had an opportunity to meet Vanessa Ogle. She's the CEO of Enseo. And she is not only the CEO, but also the founder. So when you think about really innovative things, one of the things that her and her company came up with was the Netflix that you have in hotels. Vanessa's company is one of the fastest growing companies in America. They provide technology services to what they call people places, which I think is unique. That's hotels, schools, senior living, and other things like that. She is a passionate mother. She's a wife. She's an inventor. She's a musician. She has revolutionized all kinds of things in her field. She's also developed an employee safety program to protect women and children. I don't think there's anything that she can't do. She's a leader in technology and a minority women business owner. She's been awarded more than 38 U.S. patents. So we're really excited. She's led Enseo to be recognized for excellence in numerous areas, including the Entrepreneurial Companies in America and all kinds of awards. So please join me in welcoming Vanessa to our conference.
Good morning. So here we're going to talk this morning. Thanks so much for that lovely introduction. We're going to talk about resiliency in a remote world. And nobody knows resiliency better than women because, well, first of all, we were born. So anyone who's been born knows that childbirth is something that requires more resiliency than anything else in the world. And we do it every day, day in and day out as women. And so I want to say congratulations to all of you for choosing to be here this morning, because that is a part of resiliency. Part of resiliency is choosing to learn and choosing to celebrate. I'm sure you'll hear several times today the definition of resiliency. And resiliency is the ability to recover quickly in difficult times. If you'll indulge me for just a moment, I'm going to read a few names. And these are women who were resilient, and we'll explain why in a little bit. So I'm going to read some country names for you and you'll understand why. Sri Lanka, India, Israel, Argentina, Central African Republic, Portugal, the United Kingdom, Dominica, Iceland, Norway, Malta, Philippines, Pakistan, Ireland, Lithuania, Nicaragua, Bangladesh, France, Poland, Burundi, Canada, Rwanda, Turkey, Haiti, Guyana, New Zealand, Latvia, Panama, Switzerland, Finland, Indonesia, Senegal, São Tomé and Príncipe, Peru, Macedonia, Mozambique, Germany, Ukraine, Chile, Jamaica, Liberia, South Korea, Moldova, Croatia, I'm almost done, Australia, Costa Rica, Kyrgyzstan, Slovakia, Trinidad, Denmark, Kosovo, Mali, Thailand, Malawi, Slovenia, Brazil, Mauritius, and Namibia. Those names sound weird, right? Like they're countries from all over the world, every continent. And those are all countries that have had a female leader. Every one of them. And some, in many cases, decades and decades ago. And today in the United States, we have 11 governors that are women. Doesn't sound like very much, does it, out of 50 states and 5 territories. But if you think about the fact that those 11 governors are 11 governors that are women today, and we've only had 44 women governors since the beginning of our country, it gives you some idea to the momentum that we have today. Mayor Price mentioned, and I want to mention it again, that she is one of a tiny group of women who are mayors of the largest cities in our country. But there is momentum. and there are more women leading today than ever before. So if you're taking notes, take a moment and write down the word momentum. And then take another moment and say it differently than you usually say it. So instead of saying momentum, say mom-entum, because that's what we have. We have an opportunity for moms to do more, for wives to do more, for daughters to do more. And if you're men in the audience, thank you for being here, and thank you for appreciating the need for this time and the need for this focus, because as women doing what we're doing today, we couldn't do what we do without the support of good men. So that's an important thing that should also be appreciated by all of us. So celebrating. So that's the first thing that we need to do to be resilient, is to celebrate, because just like there are difficult times, we do have wins. So we need to take the time to celebrate our wins, to make sure that in the difficult times, we know that it will be okay. That's a statement that I use with my girls often. I say, it will be okay. If they don't have marshmallows at the store when we get there, it will be okay. We have to set ourselves up to understand that we're not always going to get exactly what we want. 2020 has certainly been a testament to that. We have not gotten the year we thought we would have. I know many of us had New Year's resolutions that we brought into the year, and the year is so different than what we thought it would be. I walked into the year in 2020 with the best year my company had ever had. We had our record-breaking revenues, record-breaking profits, record-breaking growth rates. We had 50 schools that were signed up to put our employee and student safety solution to allow students and teachers to be safe in their classrooms. They were ready to go. We were so excited. And then 2020 hit and the world changed. Not only did 2020 hit, and the rest of my business was focused, as Jana said earlier, in people places, hotels and schools, which were equally devastated by this pandemic of COVID-19. Our customers were wiped out. The brands did huge layoffs and furloughs, and I also had to do layoffs and furloughs of my team. As a leader who began my company in 2000, we have lived through many difficult times. We've lived through 9/11, when our core business was the financial services industry and the travel industry. We lived through the financial crash of 2008, just as we were starting to take another lift of the business, having recovered from 9/11. And now, once we've turned around again and had a big set of growth over the last couple of years, transitioning our business and a new technology, and going from significant losses into finally significant profits, to be hit by 2020. The worst thing about being hit by 2020 wasn't the business impact. My girls came back from spring break and they were coughing. It was a weird cough, right? It wasn't a meaty, heavy, wet cough. It was this crazy dry cough that just kept going. Their fevers cranked up, but not enough to be worried. It was just a low grade fever. It was 90 to 100.1 to 90 to 100.1 day after day after day. My oldest daughter couldn't smell or taste her food, which was weird. I was making comfort food to make her feel better. Clearly, you know what this means. We all know what these symptoms mean now. We didn't know what those symptoms meant then, not necessarily. And so having to go through some of the most difficult times, again, in my company's history, all while dealing with my daughters who were sick, required resiliency. I didn't see it as resiliency at the time. I just saw it like doing exactly what any leader, what any mom had to do. You just do what you have to do. You put one foot in front of the other every day. You all know this. It doesn't matter if you get the flu and your child has the flu. One has the toilet, one has a trash bin, right? You just make it work. And I know there's giggling out there because I know that you know that it's happened and you've dealt with it, and you've dealt with it very, very well. So having to be on a Zoom call and laying off team members, furloughing team members, furloughing family members, laying off family members, truly not just my work family, but my family. That was one thing, and it was hard, it was awful. But doing it while my daughter was on the dog bed on the floor behind me with an oxygen cannula up her nose on an oxygen machine, that put everything into perspective. But what it did is it galvanized me, and it galvanized me to focus on how are we going to be a part of the solution? How are we going to move forward? What are we going to do to help the world crawl out of this mess? And my team pulled together and I came up with some crazy ideas, and I gave them new ideas on new products that we were going to develop, markets that we were going to go into. And in the last 9 months, we have launched and developed more products in that time frame than we have in the last several years combined. That is resiliency. And not my resiliency, but the resiliency of my team, because these amazing team members were able to refocus on what was important, even knowing that the friend that sat next to them in one cubicle was no longer there. The friend that sat next to them in the other cubicle was at home, hoping and praying that we would be able to bring things back so that they could come back to work. And they didn't. They did not panic. So another one of our sayings at home is, don't panic. You panic, you die. I will say, don't panic, and my tiny children will all chime in together and say, you panic, you die. It was super cute when they were 3 and 5. Now that they are 11 and 14, it's still pretty cute to me, but I'm the mom. But it's important. Don't panic. You panic, you die. Moms, don't panic. Moms, great moms, don't make excuses. We make it happen. And so as a woman, and Mayor said this earlier as well, we have more in front of us than some of our counterparts, because not only do we have the work job to do, but we now are putting on new hats as virtual teacher and homeschool tutor. We're now, not only am I running a company from my house, but I'm running a breakfast service, which I always did. But now I'm running a lunch service and I'm running a dinner service. And of course, the meeting day is going a little bit longer than it used to, because I'm taking advantage of the fact that now I have more time in my day without that travel to deal with. So what helps us to be resilient? Faith and inner peace. And you can have it however you like, but you have to know in those dark and difficult times that there is something to help you through. So one of the things that helps you not panic is to have inner peace, gratitude, and faith. So I encourage you. Now, people are going to talk about balance. I'm not going to talk a lot about balance today, because I think anyone knows that if you are at home as a woman with a job and you also have other roles like sister, daughter, wife, mother, friend, there's not a lot of balance to that life. Because you always have things that you can do. You always have people you can help. So instead of focusing on balance, I'm just going to focus on the critical natures of how do we make sure that we continue to be resilient? Because we do want to still continue to help those around us. Now, do you remember when you traveled? I remember traveling, and I remember being on airplanes. And I remember thinking the first time I heard the flight attendants say, if the oxygen masks drop down, be sure to put one over your own face first before helping those around you. Well, as a mom, it would be really hard not to really want to have those masks over my children's faces. But as a mom of more than one child, I see the wisdom now of making sure that I have enough oxygen so that I can help my entire family to do what they need to do. And COVID brings a whole nother level of, I need enough oxygen. And when I couldn't even walk to the mailbox, I didn't have a lot of oxygen to spare. So I had to make sure that I focused on the right things to keep those things going. So let's go through a couple of really big, really specific things that you can think of. They're all going to make sense to you when I say them, so it's not going to be rocket science. Don't give up, which is persevere. Make sure that you just keep, even in those days when you just don't know how you're going to do it, putting one foot in front of the other. Don't think all the way down the street. Don't think to the end of the month. Just put one foot in front of the other. Don't make excuses. It is what it is. You are where you are. Make the best of it. And again, one foot in front of the other. And a really important one that I think, I'm not the only one who has trouble with this, I can imagine in this audience, is don't expect perfection. You don't expect perfection out of the people around you. Don't expect it from yourself. Grace and mercy are one of the most important things that we can focus on in this time. But when you're offering grace to those around you and you're offering compassion to those around you, don't forget to point to yourself in the mirror and look at yourself and offer yourself grace and offer yourself compassion and mercy, because sometimes you do just need a break. Just checking the time. Okay. I want to make sure that we take time to celebrate. So think about ways that you can celebrate the things around us. We're going to celebrate the fact that this is 100 years from a constitutional amendment, the 19th Amendment, that gives us the constitutional rights that says our voices matter. And we have the constitutional right to vote. That is worth celebrating. And I certainly hope that all of you are registered to vote and that you are all fully expecting to go out and make your voices heard by putting your vote out in there. Vote. Encourage other people to vote. Make sure that you understand that that's part of resiliency. Resiliency for our nation is making sure that every voice is heard and that our democracy stands for something. It isn't the American experiment so that it could fail. It's the American experiment so that we continue to make it better. And I love the news when they're showing how many more women are voting than ever before, and that they truly believe, the pundits are saying day in and day out right now, that the number one constituency that they're worried about that can choose this election is women. So women, whichever you think, whatever you think is going to happen, make sure you vote. But don't let the political climate today get to you. Resiliency is about focus on what's important to you. And I'm not saying that politics aren't important. Of course they are. But you still have other jobs to do. You have to be a mom. You have to do your job, sister, daughter, wife, friend. So there's a lot of panicking going on in the news media. Don't let that panic focus on you. Try to let that roll off you. And as you let that roll off of you, focus on what's important. Another part of resiliency, feelings. I think this is an underrated piece of resiliency. So some people think that if you're not afraid, that makes you brave. No, courage has nothing to do with not being afraid. It's actually not courage if it doesn't cost you. So understand that to be resilient doesn't mean that you don't feel. Feel. You can be sad, you can be scared, you can be angry, you can be all of those things. And as women, our feelings give us strength and power. They don't take away from strength and power. Even tears coursing down our face don't make us less strong. I think they make us stronger because it shows that we have the capacity to feel, which means we have the capacity for greater passion and greater ability to help those around us, as well as making things happen. So I've spoken for a little bit today about resiliency. Let's focus a little bit on resiliency in a remote world. So remote worlds are giving us, of course, unique challenges. I've talked to that a little bit already, and the fact that now I'm doing the breakfast service and the lunch service and the dinner service and tutoring. A moment ago, I don't know if you could hear it in the background, but my youngest was practicing her cello. She's the first year of her cello playing. I'm so glad she didn't play the trumpet. That would have been so much harder. But all of these things are happening at home, and there is more to manage. So how do you do it? I think one of the most important things that works in my household is sharing of responsibilities. I'm quite lucky that my children are old enough. Let's see. I'm getting a message from okay, Leah, we'll do that. Resiliency is an important one. I totally forgot where I was. And now the printer's going to go off because someone's printing in my office right now. So again, grace and compassion, sharing is where I was talking about. So we have to be able to share. Make sure that you surround yourself with people who support you. I have the best team in the world that supports me. I have a team at work that supports me, and I have a team at home that supports me. My children have learned, now they're old enough now, so that's a blessing. They have learned to do their own dishes. They have learned to help be at their stations, their workstations to do their homework. They know what their job is. When they were tiny, they would recite this little saying. Their job is to be obedient. Right away, all the way, the kind way. And so whenever anything happened, I didn't have to go, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. I just said, what is your job? And they would reply, to be obedient. How are you supposed to be obedient? Right away, all the way, the kind way. And then I would remind them, so what you just did, was that right away? Was that all the way? And my favorite, what are couches for? Not jumping on, right? Right. So anything we can do to get the help of our friends and family, that will allow us to be resilient. Because sometimes when you're carrying all of those burdens as a woman, as a mom, as a worker, as a leader, as a wife, as a friend, when you're carrying those burdens, it is overwhelmingly heavy. It just feels like it's too much. Sometimes it may be too much. It is okay if it's too much for you. That is okay. If it is too much for you, make sure that you take the time to ask for help. I know I've just said something revolutionary to most women. You don't want to ask for help. You only want to give help. But please don't forget to ask for help. Would you be upset if one of your friends asked you for help? Of course you wouldn't. Would you be afraid or upset or mad if any of your children asked you for help, or if your spouse asked you for help? Of course you wouldn't. Ask for help and expect that you will get the help that you ask for. Reach out and make sure that you get the support. Because if you're carrying that bucket and that bucket is so heavy and it's too heavy, you know what makes that bucket less heavy? More hands on the bucket, even tiny hands. It works. I promise you it works. So as hard as it is for you to receive help from those around you, please be sure to do that. Receive the help of the people around you. So we're going to take a few minutes and we're going to take questions. So we've got 15 minutes for questions. I could talk all day, but I'm going to open it up to questions. So if you can just jump in the chat and put some questions in the chat, that would be fantastic. And we can't wait to hear and have more of an ongoing conversation with you about the things that you have questions. Okay, so Nettie Matthews asks, Vanessa, who are your heroes? Well, my biggest hero today is RBG. Think about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and what she did. She went to law school at Harvard when there were so few women in law school. And when she got in, she had a dinner with the dean. And at the dinner with the dean, instead of saying, congratulations, we're so glad you're here, he said, why are you here? Why are you taking a place that should be for a man? Then her husband was also there. He got sick, so she attended his classes and her classes, and she raised her children. So what she has done, not only for herself and for her family, but the way she applied herself to truly bring equal rights to women and all people, is something that I am just so incredibly, I am in awe of what she did. And to be a tiny little person, I mean, a huge persona, but a tiny little person and a grandma, and to turn into a rock star in her 80s, well, you can see I have a thing for rock stars, so that's a big star right there. Let's see. My LinkedIn newsletter, Nettie, thank you for mentioning it. So what made me start my LinkedIn newsletter? Well, my team made me start my LinkedIn newsletter. While we were at home with COVID, I felt disconnected from my team, and I was worried about my team. And I was feeling a lot, right? I had my kids here. We were sick. I was sick. They were sick. The business was having to be completely reimagined. I was really flooded with feelings and emotions and thoughts, and striving to bring hope and gratitude so that I could be resilient. And so I was sending emails to my company on a regular basis. And a couple of those emails got shared. Actually, they got shared with my PR firm. And the PR firm said, you have to share these. And so they came to me with an opportunity to have a LinkedIn newsletter. And there aren't many people who have those official newsletters. And so I did. I was like, these notes of mine are kind of personal. They're not really business oriented, but they've been very well received, and a voice of an authentic mom and CEO, and the struggles and the funny stories that I have. I've gotten a lot of really great feedback, not just from the fun stories, but from business associates, vendors, partners, where they actually are connecting with me more because they see what's been happening in my life. Let's see. What are my career plans in the future? Asks Bianca Perez. Well, Bianca, I am the CEO of Enseo today. Years ago, when someone said, what did I want my next title to be? I said mom, because I hadn't been able to have children. So I am a mom. I'm a mom of 4 now. I have 2 older boys. I have a 29-year-old and a new daughter-in-law. My 29-year-old son lives in Fort Worth. He is a police officer at the University of Texas in Arlington. And then my 19-year-old is at college. Actually, he's here for the weekend visiting. And then my 2 youngest are 14 and 11. So Vanessa 2.0, what does that look like? I think more writing, more music. I've been writing a lot of music in the COVID time. And so my husband and I have had a lot of fun doing the music thing. So I'm excited. We're actually launching an album, which is a crazy thing, here by the end of the year. So that will be a fun part of Vanessa 2.0. What resources or groups do I utilize? Great question, Julie. The single biggest transformer of my taking my business to the next level was joining YPO. And YPO is a group for CEOs of a company of a certain size, but there are lots of great women groups. YPO is not a women's group, it's just a CEO group, but getting in a room with a group of CEOs who have similar challenges, similar, time challenges, work challenges, personal challenges. And so we have a small group of 8 of us, and we meet together once a month. And it's kind of like the super secret squirrel. It's a combination of AA and therapy and a board meeting. And so if you can imagine all of those things wrapped together, it's a very, very safe place to talk about anything and everything that's important to us, and to get feedback from 8 other executives, husbands, wives, sisters, daughters, mothers, fathers, that help us understand what we're doing, and really just a place for me to have a sounding board. What are my favorite hobbies? Says Natalie. Well, I love surfing. So we go to the lake, and with my daughters, we love going out and boating and surfing and playing in the water. So I love being in the water. I love music, and so I've been playing other people's music for a while. We started a band at Enseo, Gem. And so we started doing concerts a couple times a year. And we even started playing here locally. My favorite story about playing the concerts was we were called and asked to, we rented out one of the places here in town to play a concert for our own team. And it was an internal thing. And before I knew it, it had kind of, spiraled a little bit out of control. And we started getting bookings. And we started being on the websites of some of these places like Hank's and Guitars and Growlers. And so we started getting booked for concerts. And I wanted to remind everybody, I'm like, hey, usually we have to pay to take your stage, right? And all of a sudden people started trying to hand us money after the concerts, so that to pay us to play. So that was super fun. We've really missed that live music in this time. And so being able to sit at home and take that one step further and turn into actually writing original music instead of just playing other people's music that I enjoy has been a very vulnerable transition that I've really enjoyed. So those are some of the hobbies. And of course, with children, you have to support all your children's hobbies too. My husband is also a musician. He plays in a band here in town called Infinite Journey, and it's a Journey tribute band. He's the guitar player, and he's spectacular. So I used to, one of my big weekend things to do was that, okay, Brandon asks, do you hug men in the workplace? I grew up where hugging in the workplace was common, but have come to learn that this is not appropriate and can make women feel uncomfortable. Most of the time I will have good colleagues that are men, but just shake women's hands. Is that most appropriate? What do you do? Boy, that's such a hard question today, Brandon. Such a hard question today. Well, with COVID, nobody hugs anybody. Don't even shake their hand. Don't even try to do it, because then you're making someone make a political statement and possibly reject you. So just say hello and be friendly. I think the most important thing to do is to respond to how someone is coming to you. If someone comes to you with a hug, then you can hug them, because clearly they are starting that. If they come to you with a shake, with a hand to shake, then shake their hand. The problem with hugging, I'm a very touchy-feely person. As a Latina, we hug everybody. But I do not want to be forced to touch someone that I do not want to be forced to touch. And I do not want someone encroaching on my body that I choose no. And so to put a woman in a position where either you're more powerful than she is, the work relationship is a work relationship of imbalance of power, by requesting that hug, that can be an implication of an imbalance of power, and that it's a very difficult thing to actually say no to without hurting someone's feelings or damaging your relationship with them. And so I would let the people in your life and the people in your workplace initiate things. And then, and if you have a question, actually just ask them. Use words and just ask them and say, hey, we used to hug, but I know now that that's probably not okay, but just let me know whatever is comfortable for you. And so just have that conversation and get consent, and then you're good to go. Cynthia St. John actually saw my husband play Infinite Journey last week at Arlington Music Hall. And at Arlington Music Hall did a fabulous job of keeping that entire audience socially distanced. And it was a wonderful concert. They did a great job with it. They're playing all over town these days, and it's so fun to be able to put on my groupie hat or my roadie hat and be down stage just yelling and screaming or plugging in guitar cables. Vivian asks, is there anything you think you would have done differently in terms of handling the COVID-19 situation with your company? Vivian, I'm really happy with how we responded to COVID-19. I sent people home almost immediately. So even before my daughters and I got sick, I sent people home very early in March. We grounded people. We told people not to go to trade shows. We didn't let people on planes. We put our people first, and that was the most important thing to me. We kept people at home and then not coming into the office, and we enabled people by giving them equipment and materials to go and work from their homes. The other thing that we did is we responded quickly. We didn't panic. We made very hard decisions. I made very hard decisions very quickly. Layoffs quickly, furloughs quickly. But while we were doing that, I aggressively went out and tried to get as much assistance as I could. Ended up getting the PPP loan, so I could bring all of my people back, and I did bring all of my people back. And I put them on new tasks to do more things so that we could have a product to come out of recovery. So we've done very well this year. And so I'm very happy with how we handled it. In the community, our Chinese manufacturing partners sent us PPE, and they sent us a ton of PPE, which was wonderful, even before we knew what PPE was. And since we had all of our people at home and they were safe, we took that PPE and we distributed it to hospitals around the community. We also sent it to our team members who had family members who were first responders. So we had a whole bunch of people who had son-in-laws that were doctors or wives that were nurses or all kinds of things, people that are Enseo employees, but that their family members were first responders. So we sent them PPE so they could do their jobs safely. And so, we were compassionate with our customers. We asked our vendors and our partners to be compassionate with us. And so, and they were. And so just like I said to you, ask for help. We asked for help. I went on national news and said I was asking for help, not for handouts, but just for the correct type of assistance. And we got it. And so because of that, we've come through very, 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 very well. Okay, so we are almost exactly on the new time deadline that they gave us. We probably have room for just one more question. Otherwise, I'm going to turn it back over to the moderators. Here, we'll share. I'd love for you to keep in touch with me. If you enjoyed this, please do. Here are my social media handles.